Thank you for tuning in once again as we continue our conversation around racism and privilege. There are different types of privilege. There's economic privilege and intellectual privilege. There is privilege that comes with age and class and gender. For the purpose of our discussion, privilege can be defined as an unearned advantage or entitlement that contributes to one's own benefit or to the detriment of others. As we focus on racism and racial disparities, we will hone in on the touchy topic of white privilege. White privilege is favor or advantage and preferential treatment achieved solely from being white. Now, white people can't help being white, just like I can't help being black. And to my white friends, you can't help that you have this privilege. You can't just get rid of it. And there really shouldn't be guilt or embarrassment about the race you're born into. But we have to come to an agreement that this privilege exists. Our goal is to understand the privilege, acknowledge it, and then diminish it. We diminish it by leveling the playing field. We use it to be a catalyst for change. By now, you should have seen the movement of Black Lives Matter. You may have also heard the counter statement that all lives matter. So let me suggest that all lives can't matter until everyone's life matters, until Black Lives Matter. Being pro-Black doesn't mean being anti-white. We said Black Lives Matter. We never said that only Black Lives Matter. There is a specific movement around the emphasis of Black lives because there is a disproportionate destruction of those lives. Some members of society reap unfair advantages while other members are discriminated against, marginalized, and disenfranchised, meaning they are deprived and kept in powerless position or deemed unimportant.
I'm sorry?
You're under arrest.
Okay. Do you mind telling me why I'm under arrest, sir? Why am I under arrest, sir?
Officer's with CNN and he's on the air right now.
Okay.
You are arresting him live on CNN. We told you before that we are with CNN.
If you're just tuning in, you are watching our correspondent, Omar Jimenez, being arrested by state police in Minnesota. We're not sure why our correspondent is being arrested.
Hang on one second, Allison. Let's listen into what these officers are saying. That is an American television reporter, Omar Jimenez, being led away.
I witnessed this scene you just saw unfold after the death of George Floyd, and I cried. My heart was broken. It just was the straw for me. And for a moment, I felt like I couldn't breathe. While preparing this series, I stopped several times to wipe my tears, and I drew from the countless incidents and personal experiences that provide evidence of racism, discrimination, and injustice. There have been several media stories that have surfaced around white people calling the police on black people for trivial, ridiculous, or non-existent reasons. Recently, a woman called the police on a man bird watching in Central Park. He asked her to put her dog on a leash, which was required in the park.
Would you please stop? Sir, I'm asking you to stop.
Please don't come close to me.
Sir, I'm asking you to stop recording me.
Please don't come close to me.
Please take your phone off.
Please don't come close to
And I'm
me.
taking a picture and calling the cops.
Please call the cops. Please call the cops.
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Please tell them whatever you like.
Excuse me? I'm sorry, I'm in the Lambeau. and there is a man, African American, he has a bicycle helmet. He is recording me and threatening me and my dog. There is an African American man, I am in Central Park. He is recording me and threatening myself and my dog. And my... I'm sorry, I can't hear breathe. I'm being threatened by a man in the ram.
So meet Christian Cooper, the black man that was threatened in Central Park by a white woman, Amy Cooper, no relation. He is a Harvard University graduate, a writer, former Marvel editor, and current biomedical editor of Health Science Communications, board member at Audubon Society, who happens to love bird watching. This woman used her privilege to put this man in danger. Calling the police to say a black man was endangering her life could have been tragic. Privilege paves the way to oppress others. White privilege doesn't mean that everything you've received has been handed to you on a silver spoon. It doesn't mean it's been easy. It doesn't mean that you haven't worked for everything you have. It does mean you have an advantage. You have the opportunity for your hard work to pay off. You have the opportunity to get a low interest mortgage and for home ownership. You have the likelihood of your children receiving a quality education. You have more access to health care and benefits. The thing is, if you've had a difficult road, if you've had hardships in life, they were not brought on by the color of your skin.
Hello, my white friends and family. A lot of you have been messaging me about what is and what isn't white privilege, and I'm no expert or the authority on it, but I have some thoughts. So, white privilege does not negate the struggle, be it mundane or incredible, that you have faced as a white or white passing person. It does suggest, however, that through your journey, one thing that did not compound the difficulties was the color of your skin. It does not say that every person of color has had a harder life than you. Let me repeat that one. It does not say that every person of color has had a harder life than you. It does suggest that in many instances, systemically, if you and a person of color were in the very same situation, that you would have an advantage because of your whiteness. I understand that this can be hard to hear, hard to digest. There are a few reasons for that. This asks you to center your focus on somebody else. It asks you to accept that something beyond your control has given you a leg up and has disenfranchised somebody else. It suggests that even though you had a head start systemically, and by no malicious intent on your part, that you are being surpassed by people who did not have the advantages that you had. It suggests that some of us are working harder than you are. Try this. Ask your friends of color if they've ever had a teacher, a mentor, a parent tell them that they need to be twice as good as their white counterpart to have any value in the system. Have a read at a recent article published in the National Post by author Rex Murphy about how Canada is not racist. And it goes through all of the great things Canada is doing to combat systemic racism. This article comes purely from a place of white privilege, which has shielded some of you from fully understanding what some of us go through every day. I mean, nothing says white privilege more than being able to say it doesn't exist and then being able to say that the very notion of it is racist. This article also has a very not so subtle tone that we, the non-white settlers, are not showing enough gratitude to our colonizers, as if living within and succeeding within a structure that has been proven to benefit you based on the color of your skin isn't enough. This article subtly suggests that we go back to being how my parents were when they first came here. I'm first gen. My parents always told me to keep quiet and keep my head down through any racist altercation I may have found myself in, or if somebody in my vicinity was getting in trouble, no matter what, be quiet, keep your head down, be invisible, and be good. Because that's what they had to do. to survive. And because of them, we get to speak and have a voice. This is my voice.
All right, so now I'm going to ask you some questions, and I'm going to ask you to keep score. You can keep score in your head, or you might want to get a little piece of paper and a pencil. But I want you to give yourself 1 point if the statement is true, 0 points if it's false. We'll start. My doctor is of my race. 1 point if it's true, 0 false. Most of my teachers were of my race. Most of the people I work with are of my race. Most of the people I worship with are of my race. Are you keeping score? Do you need a calculator yet? I can go shopping most of the time without being followed or harassed. My children will see themselves in their educational materials or curriculum. I don't worry about my children being mistreated because of race. Remember, 1 point for true, 0 for false. I don't worry about being in the presence of the police. My school board representative is of my race. My governor is of my race. My mayor is of my race. My president is of my race. Give you a moment to tally that, and in the comfort of your own space, you can get a glimpse into some of your white privilege. I'm going to paraphrase a portion of information about structural racism in America that can be found on urban.org. In this country, opportunity and prosperity have been reserved for white people. There has been an intentional exclusion and oppression of people of color. So the Urban Institute examines how structural racism continues to disproportionately segregate communities of color from access to opportunity and upward mobility, for making it more difficult for people of color to secure quality education, jobs, housing, health care, and equal treatment in the criminal justice system. So, here's your next assignment. Identify a time when being white worked to your benefit. Another assignment is to watch American Son, starring Kerry Washington.
My son never came home.
Look, I'm sure that he's gonna turn up. First name?
Jamal, Jamal.
Does he have any distinguishing scars, tattoos, gold teeth? Does he go by any street names?
He doesn't have a street name.
There was an incident.
What does that mean?
Further information needs to go through Lieutenant Stokes. I don't know him personally. They told me that he's been paged to come down here immediately.
I want to know now.
Man, I'm glad you're here. She went from like 0 to ghetto and nothing flat.
It's okay. Everything's gonna be fine. Where's our son?
Ma'am, I have kids too.
Any of them black?
Excuse me?
Keep your hands on the wheel, boy. Look straight ahead. Don't make any sudden moves. Wouldn't want to make the man in the bulletproof vest nervous when he's pointing a Glock at your head. You're the one who disappeared from his life.
Oh, this is my fault now.
Well, you walked out on him. Let's just find our son and go back to our respective corners, okay?
Fine. Listen to me.
We have been waiting and we've been patient.
We are done being strung along.
Where is Jamal now?
I want to know right now. I want to talk to
Where
him.
is he?
I don't know what you expect me to do.
Please, find my son!
In the most recent cases of racial injustice witnessed through the culture of policing, I understand that investigations and charges weren't filed because authorities saw the video. Action was taken because we saw the video. This activity is not new. The ability to capture the activity with technology is fairly new. Watching these incidents over and over, experiencing racism over and over, both have a physiological and psychological impact. People of color are living with chronic stress. How do you prescribe a reaction to hundreds of years of racism? How do you decide an appropriate response to the senseless loss of life as a way of life? It's a lot to deal with and a lot to keep up with. Now, imagine you can't go shopping for Skittles, you can't go for a jog, you can't bird watch, you can't walk down the middle of the street when there are no sidewalks, you can't be at home sleeping or at home playing video games, you can't be on your cell phone in your grandmother's backyard, and please don't get pulled over for a traffic stop. And granted, there may have been minor offenses along the way, but not enough for these senseless murders. Our justice system has courts. You can't issue a verdict of execution on the spot, and that's exactly what's happened over and over again. The names change, but the color is the same. I mentioned before about the talk that Black parents have to have with their children to keep them safe. And we remind our children of this every day. Every day.
Don't put your hands in your pockets. Don't put your hoodie on. Don't be outside with no shirt on. Check in with your people. It don't matter even if you're down the street. Don't be out too late. Don't touch anything you're not buying. Never leave the store without a receipt or a bag, even if it's just a pack of gum. Never make it look like there's an altercation between you and someone else. Never leave the house without your ID. Don't drive with a wife beater on. Don't drive with a do-rag on. Don't go out in public with neither. Don't ride with the music too loud. Don't stare at a Caucasian woman. If a cop stop you randomly and start questioning you, don't talk back. Just compromise. If you ever get pulled over, hands on the dashboard, and ask, could you get out your license and registration?
What type of talks do you have with your children?
Mm-hmm.